Hello Magic fans, I'm Beef, and with Edge of Eternities releasing on Arena on Tuesday, I thought I'd do a quick video going through the new mechanics and giving my thoughts on some of them and some of the upcoming cards. So let's get into it. So as of last week, the update to Arena has got the Edge of Eternities cards on them. They've done that for the last few sets. They've done a week in advance, so you can check on Arena. But you do need to know how it is not immediately obvious. So if we go into our collection, make sure we... Actually, at the moment, let's not do that because I'll show you something. So if we do the set S colon, it's a set colon, Edge of Eternities is, funnily enough, EOE. Because we've only got filtered cards that we collected, we can see a brief overview of some of the reprints that are going to happen. So Banishing Light and Null, Virus Beetle, Bombard are reprints. I didn't actually know Bombard was a reprint. But we are also getting the dual lands, God of the Shrine, Watery Grave, Stomping Ground, Sacred Foundry and Breeding Pool. And if you've played Brawl or seen me play Brawl, these cards will not be new to you. And in fact, that's why I've only got one or two of a few of them. Not sure how I've got 4 copies of Sacred Foundry, but never mind, because obviously in Brawl you only play one. And I'm really looking forward to these being in standard, because more dual lands is always good. They turn on the verges really, really well. And you know, we have a choice. We can get them in untapped by paying 2 life, or get them in tapped if we don't need to. And we're not losing the Surveil lands. I'm fairly sure we're not. They're from Murderers of Karlov Manor, so that's not rotating for a while, unless I'm wrong. Someone leave a comment down below if I am, but I'm fairly sure we're sticking around. So we're going to have 2 sets of dual lands with basic land typing, and that is always good. While we don't have fetch lands in standard, I think having these are really good. That's why I very rarely play the dual lands at Scry, because they don't have the basic land typing. And with verges I think are the most powerful dual lands there are in standard, and we need the basic land types to turn them on. So really happy that they're coming back. Obviously we only get 5. We'll probably, usually when they do this, we get the other set of colours in the next set, so we'll have to wait and see for what the next set is. Actually, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. So anyway, if we then go into not collected, we can see the entire set from Edge of Eternities. I think you could even put them into a deck at the moment, but it would say none of these cards are legal. And just be aware, if you do buy the pre-order, which I always do, or you buy a big stack of boosters on Arena, just a little tip, make sure you spend all your common and uncommon wild cards on new cards. What you do is go into a deck creation, search by Edge of Eternities, filter by common and uncommon, and just whack those in, craft them, because then when you crack all your booster packs, then your vault will go up. You see mine's at pretty much 97%, so I'm definitely going to get 1 vault, might get 2, and that's just a way to get your vault up. Anyway, let's get into it. So there's 3 new mechanics, and they are Warp, Void and Station. We also have a new token called Lander Tokens. Land Tokens I think is going to be very good. They act a bit like clue tokens. In fact, you can pay to and crack them, but with Lander Tokens you can fetch up a basic land. So people call them Rampant Growth on a token, because Rampant Growth costs 2 mana and you can fetch up a basic land. So they're going to be really good, I think, as well. So let's start off with Warp, because Void is... some of Void's based on Warp, and Station has interaction with Warp as well. So I think Warp is a good place to start. So this should be all the Warp cards. And basically what Warp is, it's you can cast them for a Warp cost for a reduced amount. So we can see Halia, Guided by Light, is usually a 3 mana 3/3, and it has whenever Halia or another creature or artifact you control enters, you gain 1 life. Beginning of your end step, draw a card if you're going through on 1 life step, and you can warp her for 1. But when you warp a card in, you exile at the beginning of your next end step, then you may cast it from exile on a later turn. So essentially you get the card twice. So if we warp Halia on turn 1, we get a life because Halia enters. Or if we're on turn 2 and we warp her and then we play another 1-drop, we gain 2 life. Or, you know, if we do it on turn 3, we get 3 life, we can draw that card and then she goes off to exile, we can play her later on. And some cards get immediate value from having a warp creature out. So there is one in red. Where is it? Nova Hellkite. 5 mana, 4/5, flying haste. When it enters, it deals 1 damage to target creature an opponent controls. You can warp it in for 3. So on turn 3, you can warp it in, get a 4/5 flying haste, ping a creature opponent controls, and then 2 turns later, whenever you have 5 mana, cast it normally, still getting 4 or 5 fly and haste, and you get that ping as well. Tanuk, I think, is going to be really good. Brawl card, but also standard. It gives artifacts and red creatures in your hand warp 3, and it gives creatures you can control haste, meaning anything you warp is going to have haste, which is really, really powerful. But let's look at some of the art, because this is in all colours as well. I think there is nothing missing out. Yeah, all colours. So we got like Exotic Sunborn is going to be really, really good. 5 mana, 4/5, flying lifelink, so good stats. If one or more tokens would be created under control, twice as many of those tokens created instead. So it's the same as Elspeth Stormslayer, same mana cost as well. But you can warp it in for 2. So this is where I think, not necessarily, I suppose it gives you options, you know. If you have, let's say, a Carrot Cake, 2 mana, you create a rabbit token and you scry. You're not, if you have the, you know, this and that in your opening hand, you're not going to go, you know what, I'm going to wait until turn 4 to play my Carrot Cake because I want to get 2 rabbits. It will be a case of, well, if I draw, you know, on turn 4, if I draw my Carrot Cake and go, well, I've got 4 mana, now I can warp this in and get 2 tokens from a Carrot Cake. If you haven't got another 4-drop, then, you know, that's going to be really, really good. Or, you know, if there's more powerful token creations that you go, well, I've got an extra 2 mana. I essentially see this as it adds kicker 2, create double the amount of tokens to one of your token generators, and then you can cast it for a very good body later on. And this is, we don't see many token duplicators on creatures. Oh, here, Mondrak doubles it from one of the sets a couple of years ago. I think it's rotating out. And there's from Ixon, the white O here, I can't remember the O it's called, that triples it as well. But I think it's only creature tokens. Like another good one as well is Starfield Shepherd, 5 mana 3/2. When it enters, search your library for basic planes or a creature card with mana value 1 or less, put it in your hand. You can warp it with 2. So on turn 2, if you need to get a land drop, you can warp this and still get it back. Again, it's a bit like cycling a Herbie's Migration, because you cycle that for a land, later on you can play it. This is like you essentially cycle it, but you don't discard it. You can see a land or a mana value creature 1 or less. And there are creatures that when we get onto station, I will come back to some, because there is interaction between station and warp. When I explain station, you'll understand it. But let's just then get into Void. Now, Void seems to be solely black and red, which I didn't know at first until I started looking into doing this video. So Void is similar to Revolt. So if we go to, so Revolt, most famously I think known on Fatal Push or Battle of the Big Bridge from the Final Fantasy set. Revolt, you get something extra if a permanent left the battlefield under your control this turn. So Fatal Push, destroy target creature is mana value 2 or less. If a permanent has left the battlefield under your control this turn, it's destroy that creature if it has mana value 4 or less instead. Very, very powerful card, especially in Brawl where you have a lot of fetch lands. You pay out a fetch land, crack the fetch land, that triggers Revolt, and you can Fatal Push something for mana value 4 or less. You know, that is really, really good. Whereas Void is a bit of a downgraded version. What Void is, something happens if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or if a spell was warped. So we can see on the Hilda Blade, a 1 mana equipment, quick creature gets +3/+1. But if at the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield of this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, attach this equipment to a target creature you control. So it is a bit of a downgrade on Revolt, but you do have that warp upside as well. But again, like Revolt, and a bit like Rage, where something happens if you attack this turn, it can happen at the beginning of your end step, at combat, when the creature enters. So things like Tragic Trajectory, I think is going to be very, very powerful. Target creature gets -2/-2 to end turn for 1, but if you have Void, it gets 10, -10/-10. That's getting anything in standard, apart from the Galter. But if you have 2 of these, the first one might, well, no, because it's a permanent you control. But if you can turn on Void, or if you warp something, this is a 1 mana kill at pretty much anything. You know, and things like Hymn of the Faller, Surveil 1, then draw a card and lose 1 life. If you have Void, you draw 2 cards instead. Decode Transmissions, the pretty basic 3 mana, you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. If you Void instead, you draw 2 cards. Each opponent loses 2 life instead of you losing 2 life as well. So there is quite a few mixes. Corral of the Void, enchant creature, when it attacks, put target creature card from defender player's graveyard onto the battlefield under control, tapped and attacking. So you do need a card in your opponent's graveyard, and basically you sacrifice at the end of the turn unless you have void, and then it sticks around. And there's some really powerful ones as well. And mixed like Alfario is a legendary. If you have void, when it attacks, opponent loses half their life. So Thera Super Void's like a mythic. I'm not sure it's that powerful, but whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent chooses a creature they control and exiles it. That's pretty good. It's Grave Pact in standard. Grave Pact is a horrible card in Brawl. 4 mana, whenever a creature you control dies, your opponent sacrifices a creature. Same thing. But at the beginning of your end step, if a player controls no creatures, you sack Zothera and then put a creature card exiled with it onto the battlefield under control with 2 initial +1/+1 counters in it. Obviously, it doesn't have void, but it has void in the title, so it's come up in the search, and that does happen a couple of times. And then Void Altar is a station card we'll get onto in a bit. So there's not many void cards. You just get some extra bonus if a non-land permanent's left your control or you've walked a card. Now let's get on to station, which I think is probably the biggest one, and I think the most, not necessarily controversial, but the most discussed around whether it's good. And I don't think it is. So there is a new subtype of artifacts called spacecraft. All spacecraft have station, and also there is a colour in each, a land in each colour. Let's just go to, we can't filter by land in here. Can we filter by lands? Not basic lands, land, there we go. So there is one in each colour of lands. They also have station. Now station, I see it as a bit like super crew. Obviously, with crew, you tap something down with the required power, and the vehicle becomes crew to end of turn. Station is like that, and it's probably easy to explain without the lands. So if we look at Lumen class frigate, for example, a 2-mana spacecraft, when it comes down, it doesn't do anything, but it has station. Station means you can tap another creature you control, put charge counters on the spacecraft or the planet equal to that creature's power. You can only do it as a sorcery. And it does say in this one's creature test, it's an artifact creature at 12+. So basically, if you see the 2 boxes, it says 2+, other creatures you control get +1/+1. So if you have 2 charge counters on it, it buffs your board. That's actually really good. And then 12+, it becomes a flying, lifelink, 3/5 creature. Artifact creature, like a vehicle. So that's why, as I said, it's like super crew. And Lumen class frigate, I think, is one of the good ones, although whether you spend time getting up to 12 or more charge counters is one thing. I think the 2+ is very easy to get and it buffs your time board. The reason I don't think this is going to be very good, largely, is the similar reason for battles. So, if you don't know what battles are, they were the first new card released since Planeswalkers, and they came out in I can't remember what the set's called. Basically, the battle against the Phyrexians a couple of years ago. They all do something when they enter, and then you can attack them down to remove defense counters on them. They all have a specific amount of defense counters. Invasion of Gobekhan has 3, Invasion of Baron has 5, 5, 4, 4, 4, 5, 4. So it's all 7 for Arcavius. And once you've removed the number of defense counters, and obviously the power of the attacking creature determines how many counters are removed, you transform it and you get on the other side. You can't destroy it, so a thing that says destroy target permanent doesn't count as removing counters, but obviously things that remove counters do. And, at the moment, we see played regularly none. Invasion Arcavios you see in Omnipotence combo decks. Invasion of Tarkir you see in Dragon decks. Invasion of Zendikar you see in Ramp decks. And they do sometimes transform it because it's only got 3 defense counters. I have played an Invasion of Amonkhet in a crime deck. And then Invasion of Urgon's good in a discard deck if you want to get stuff into the graveyard. Because you create a treasure token, then you discard and draw. And Invasion of Alara I saw some play when they first come out because the backside's really, really strong. But it is 5 cards. That's kind of it. Because if you look at, let's say, Invasion of Tarkir. Now, I have transformed Invasion of Tarkir, but it's got 5 defense counters. If you can attack for 5 without, worry about your opponent jumping or getting killed in the backswing, you might as well attack your opponent's face. 5 is a quarter of their life total in standard. What is the point of attacking down an invasion when you can go face? And I think that stations, spacecraft and things with station are going to have the exact same problem. You know, something like Lumen class frigate, where you can get 2 counters on it to get a buff, fantastic. But if you can tap 12 power worth of creatures even over a few turns without just attacking or blocking, then you're probably in a good place anyway. Yes, because you tap things down using the spacecraft or the planet, you can tap summoning sick creatures, and that is good. If you can get a big creature down, you can tap it. But again, often you get a big creature down because you want to block. If you don't need to block with it that turn, then you're in a pretty good place. You know, you are probably winning, so they're going to be winged more. There are some, I think, like Lumencast Frigate, that are going to be worth it. Viseriema in a legendary deck. So when it enters, you search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, put your hand and shuffle. And if you get 7 counters onto it, it becomes a 5/5 flyer, and other tap legendary creatures you'll have indestructible. In a legendary deck, that can be really powerful. I think Synthesizer Lab Ship might see some play in the blue plus other colour artifact deck with Simulac and Synthesizer, because it's a 1 mana. Once you can play it turn 1, and if you get 2 charge counters on it, beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 other target artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 2/2 against flying turn turn. You can make one of your constructs into a 2/2, and because it gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control, it's going to be huge, and then it's going to have flying. And in theory, because you're going to have a number of probably a few huge constructs, you can tap them down to station lots of things. But again, if you've got 3 10/10s, yeah, they're going to have summoning sickness, but they're probably blocking. And then even if they're not, don't need to block, you know, do you need to station a spaceship where you can smash in for 30 the next turn? I am not sure. We do have here the White Land, Adagia, the Windswept Bastion. They all come in tapped. They all produce 1 colour of mana. That immediately makes them bad, in my opinion. We just seen in Final Fantasy where the Adventure Lands didn't see much playing standard because they had to play tapped. And then they all have 12 plus, so you need to get 12 counters on them. And Adagia, for example, once you've got 12 charge counters on it, pay 4, tap it. So essentially you're paying 5. Create a token as a copy of target artifact or enchantment you control, except it's legendary. Activate as a sorcery. It means you can only do it once, and it needs to be an artifact or enchantment that is worth copying. You may see it played in standard, in Brawl, but I'm not sure in standard. But that doesn't mean they're all bad. I think some will see play. Earthfrost Titanic Godcore turns into Thalarian Academy. At home, a Terran Academy, bonkers busted old land. You produce blue, add blue for each artifact you control. This one is the same, but you need to pay blue to begin with. The green version is Gaia's Cradle, which does the same for creatures you control. So I think they will definitely see play in Brawl. But like Edge of Battlecruiser, the 1+, whenever an opponent discards the cards they lose 3 life, will be good in a discard deck. But it does cost 4 mana, and that's quite expensive for discard decks because a lot of your discard outlets are really cheap and you get them down quickly. Oh no, too far. What are the ones? I don't think any of the other lands, apart from, say, Vendor Waken Haven, which turns into Gaia's Cradle, are going to be very good. So Ledgecast Sea Ship, once it's at 7+, when it attacks, you put a creature card from your hand on the battlefield. That is, in theory, a powerful ability, but we've seen abilities like that quite often. There is a combo with Kona from Dustmourne where in the second main phase, if Kona's tapped, you can put a creature card from your hand or a permanent from your hand on the battlefield. It doesn't see a lot of play apart from in combo decks, and this will be the same thing. But also, Station does allow you to tap creatures easily without attacking, so it does help the survival creatures from Dustmourne. Infinite Guideline Station. We're going to do a deck about it. It's Wooburg. When it enters, we create tap 2/2 Carlos Robot artifact creature token for each multicolored permanent we control. The fact they're tapped, we can't station with them straight away. And at 12+, it turns into a 7/15 flyer. And when it attacks, we draw a card for each multicolored permanent we control. So the baseline is we create a robot and then we can attack and draw one. But obviously, if we have 6 multicolored permanents or 5 other multicolored permanents, but at which stage it's going to be win more. We can create 6 robots, and next turn, tap them all to station the Infinite Guideline Station, and then hit in and draw 6 cards. It'll be interesting, but obviously it's not going to be competitive. And then Eternity Elevator, it will see play in Brawl definitely at 5 mana, tap to add 3, maybe in Standard. But if it's got 20 charge counters on it, you can tap to add X of any one colour, where X is the number of charge counters and turn it elevated. So you add 20 of any one colour. At that stage, I don't think it's worth it. But the two interesting ones are Extinguish Your Battleship, 8 mana. When it enters, destroy target non-creature permanent. Then it deals 4 damage to each creature. That's really good. You know, Cityscape Leveler was 8 mana when you cast it, destroy target non-land permanent, but also when you attacked with it. But this is destroy target non-creature permanent, and then wipe the board. But its station is only 5. Now, if you have a 5 power creature, generally, if it's a 5/5, it's going to survive the battleship's ETB, and then you can station it. Or if the turn after you play this, you play a creature has 5 power, you station it, and now you've got a 10/10 flying trample. That I think is worth it because the charge counter requirement is less than its overall power and toughness. And then the other one we're definitely going to do a deck on is Stormsire Sunstar Dreadnought, a 5/5 at 10 charge counters. Whenever you attack, Dawnsire deals 100 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker, and at 20 charge counters becomes a flying 20/20. Now, there is a type of card called Stuffy Doll cards. There is, I think, maybe 3 in Magic. Stuffy Doll, Brash Taunter, and a new enchantment, which I can't remember what it's called, in black, that basically says, well, actually, no, there's more than that, because we also have the 3/3 mono red haster, Screaming Nemesis, that when you do damage to it, it deals that damage to any other target. So if you have Screaming Nemesis down, or this new black enchantment, it enchants a creature, and it says if damage dealt to it, you deal that damage to someone else. If you have 10 charge counters on it, when we attack, we do 100 damage to that, and then we do 100 damage to... because then that creature lets you do that damage to any target, we do 100 damage to our opponent's face. So that's definitely what we're going to look at as well. But I just think they're win more. If you have time to station them, you have time to do other things. And some are good. And this is where we go back to Warp. Because, so one, there is also a card that lets you, it lets you gain control of target artifact or creature. If it's a spacecraft, you put 10 counters on it. And then at the end of the turn, you remove 10 counters from it. It doesn't say steal spacecraft your opponent controls. So you can target your own spacecraft, put 10 counters on it, get that value for a turn. But this is where Warp can come in useful. Because obviously these are often bigger creatures. If you like, Quantum Riddler, 4/6, we can warp it for 2. We get that value of draw a card, but then we can immediately tap it to station. And there is one card, Bygone Colossus. It's a 9 mana 9/9 warp 3. It will not see any proper play, but this lets us put 9 counters on a spacecraft or planet on turn 3. That could be useful. And that's what we're going to try out as well. You're not going to play it after that. Also, Endicalls of Vestige is a very good card anyway. 6 mana 7/5. When it leaves the battlefield, we draw a card. Then we may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands we control from our hand on the battlefield tapped. And it's got warp for 4. So we can warp it for 4, tap it to station, put 7 counters on something. And then when we exile the end of the turn, it leaves the battlefield. We draw a card. Then we can put permanent card with mana value, probably 4 or less, because we'll have 4 lands, it's turn 4. And then on turn 6, play it again and potentially get that trigger again if our opponent removes it. So that is the synergy between Warp and Station. And I think that's how it's going to be useful, is we warp something big, get value from it, station it, tap it to station it. But then, we do have to hope that, if we turn 3, get down a Bygone Colossus warp, tap it, we've not wasted a turn by, not playing a 3-drop that adds to the board. And that is the risk if we're facing, I know Mono Red's lessened now because of the bannings, but it's still around, do we need to get something out that can actually block? Now, in theory, depending on what we station, that might become a creature and, happy days, If we, if we get something that requires 7+, we can get this down. Let's just quickly go and have another look. We can get the frigate down on turn 2, that down on turn 3, and immediately get the 2+. That's probably not necessarily worth it. But also, if we do have 3 other worth of power, which we probably won't from turn 1, but you never know. Seriama, we can get this down on turn 3, get the Colossus, walk the Colossus turn 4, tap it for 9, immediately have a 5/5 flyer. Other tap legendaries have indestructible. Wedge like Rammer as well. Or if we're close to turning on one of our lands, but if we synthesize a landship turn 1, we can on turn 3 we can immediately activate both its options as well, which is potentially very, very powerful. What other spaceships are there that we play on turn 1 or 2? Not many. Station Monitor isn't a station. Wormwall Sleeper, you're probably not going to play that anyway. We do say Val 2, and you become a 2/2 flyer, not worth it. But close to turn on the Sunstar Dreadnought, and we can turn on the battleship. If we need 8 mana to do the battleship, but then we can probably do 9 mana to play the creature. So it is an option. It is a strategy. We're definitely going to look at it. I think the first deck on Tuesday is going to be a spaceship ramp deck, and I want the top end to be the battleship. So we'll have to see how that works out. So an interesting take. Obviously we're going to space for the first time, but obviously not to other planets. We go to other planets all the time. That's the point of Magic the Gathering. But it is interesting to see it in space. Also, I think there is literally only one Planeswalker. Tezzeret is the only Planeswalker, and it looks like it to be a powerful one. And we do get another charm as well. We've got Archmage's Charm, Archdruid's Charm, and now Arch Enemy's Charm. 3 mana instant. Choose one. Exile target creature or Planeswalker. Turn target 1 or 2 target creature and a Planeswalker card to go to your hand. Put 2/1/1 counter target creature you control against lifelink till end of turn. So it's good to see a new Arc Charm. And there are some other really, really powerful cards. One of the ones I am most excited about. If I spelled that correctly, I have not. Come on. Green. It's a 4-drop. Well, Friends of Baloth, 2 mana, 3/2, but can't be countered. Creature spells with cold can't be countered, and combat damage can't be prevented. 3/2, trample and haste for 2. Actually, not that impressive. There are a few other 2 mana, 3/2s in this set. Apparently, Wizards have said they want to push mono green because it's been terrible for ages, and it has. But where is the card? Roy, I spelled it wrong. 4 mana, 1/3. Begin combat on your turn. Put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is this creature's power. So by itself, turn 1, well, the first time it comes down, pardon me, it will put 1 counter on each creature, including itself, which means next turn it puts 2, and then it grows from there. And obviously, if you have ways to put counters on it, such as Genova, or Ordinary Tumblewag, or Innkeeper's Talon, or huge amount of ways to put counters on it, it can be absolutely busted. Loading Zone as well doubles the amount of counters we put on spacecraft as well as creatures and planets, so it can double up the counters. And it also has Warp for 1, so if we have, let's say that 9/9 we can Warp for 3, if we warp this for 1 and warp that for 3, we can put 18 counters on something, which is a great way to turn on pretty much everything apart from the 2 things that have 20. So really, really interesting. I think the fact there's only one Planeswalker is really weird as well. It's probably the least amount of Planeswalkers we've got in a long, long time. And also some really interesting creatures for Brawl as well. Tanuk, I showed you earlier, which gives all red creatures warp. It's going to be a very powerful mono-red commander. Tanuk's going to be, I think, quite a good... this Tanuk, this value commander, landfall, deals 1 damage to each opponent. If it's the second time resolve his turn, we draw a card. That's just good value overall. What other legendaries are there? Apparently, oh no, I've got green selected. That's why. Also, spacecraft can be your commander. They have changed the rules. Anything now outside of Brawl, in Brawl, anything legendary could be a commander. In Commander, only Planeswalkers that say this Planeswalker can be a commander, whereas on Brawl it doesn't matter. But they have changed the rules that anything that has a power of toughness can be your commander. A legendary, so legendary spacecraft can be your commander. Memnon, or Memnenon, is basically a slightly fixed Urza, which we did play a few weeks ago because it got a reprint in the Final Fantasy Through the Ages. Tanuk Steadfast second, giving all your red creatures warp and haste is really, really, really good. everyone's going on about Rigost. Artifacts control food in addition to their other types and have tap, sacrifice, gain 3. You can pay 1 and sacrifice it to basically throw a food at an enemy to deal 3 damage. And if we gain life each turn, we untap him. Sammy, Wildcard Captain, spells you cast with affinity to artifacts. Now, what's going to be interesting is red-white aren't the traditional artifact deck, apart from equipment. Equipment are artifacts, so double strike and vigilance. We get out equipment, it reduces the cost of all spells we have. That's going to be bonkers as well. Dominion Bracelet is a fixed, not Mind Creeper, Mindslaver. Mindslaver, I think it's a 5 mana artifact you can pay for and tap it. You control your opponent's next turn. And I think it shuffles into this deck. This one, 2 mana equipment. Quick creature has +1/+1 and 15. Exile the bracelet. You control your opponent during your next turn. This ability costs X less to activate, where X is this creature's power. Activate only as a sorcery. So if we equip this to that 9/9, it becomes 10/10, and now that costs 5. You know, so that's quite powerful. And then we do have one of the most intriguing cards, I think, in the set, the Endstone. This is what I think the story is about. People are trying to get the Endstone and give it to Tezzeret. A 7 mana artifact. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, you draw a card. But at the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes half your starting life total rounded up. So in standard, at the beginning of end of every turn, your life becomes 10. Now I think this is meant to be part downside, but if you have less than 10, it's upside. And also, setting your life at something counts as gaining life and losing life. So you have triggers that when you gain life, this will help trigger that. You know, or if you're playing, say, a black deck that revolves a lot around, like in Brawl, if you're playing Necropotence, you can just draw a third of your deck down to, you know, just activate it until you're down to 1 life, then you go back up to 10, and then you get all those cards in hand. You know, I think this is going to be a staple in Brawl, in pretty much every deck, because the card draw from everything is insane. Standard, we'll have to wait. We're definitely going to play with it. So yeah, really excited looking inside of that one. But you see, there's basically 24 legendaries. Not all of those are creatures. So it is quite a legendary light deck as light set as well. So really excited to it. I'm looking excited to see how station and spaceships work out. I don't think they're going to be great, just because I think it's win more. And if you can tap down that amount of power creatures, you're probably in a good position in a way. But we will see on Tuesday. So please remember to tune in. Obviously, with the set coming out in the evening where I am, it usually comes around 6 o'clock on Tuesday evening UK time. So I'll try and get up a video as soon as possible after that. So keep on looking out for that, and I'll see you all on Tuesday.